the comments. I'll start again because I was meeting. Hi, Gail. Nice to see you. Greetings. You can't hear any sound. Well, I just adjusted that. So I'll start again. Welcome, everyone. Today, I'm talking about how I grew my audience of ideal clients for my coaching business and how you can too. I'm going to be sharing how I built and continue to grow my ideal business filled with ideal clients who are great candidates for my programs and events. Hi, Rochelle. So nice to see you both. And if you're wondering, like, well, what is an ideal client? Ideal clients are people that you feel like you're destined to work with. You feel a values alignment with them. It's a joy and a pleasure to work with each other, and it's mutually beneficial. Like, they want to learn and grow from you, and you so appreciate offering your knowledge and what you have to share with them so they can transform some area of their lives. So if you've ever thought to yourself, I need to build and grow my audience, or maybe I have an audience and maybe they're not buyers, or maybe I wonder if I have the wrong people in my community, this training is for you. If you could type a 1 in the comments, if you want to grow your community, I would love to see it. If you're meeting me for the first time, my name's Khadija Yansani. I am the creator of the Business Queen Academy, which is a year-long program where I would work with amazing coaches, healers, guides to not only create what I call their soul signature offer, but to launch it and to sell it. The only problem is, how can you sell your offer or market your offer if you don't have anyone to market, share, offer it to? And that's where it's really important that audience building comes into place. And it's an ongoing thing, which we'll be talking about today. So type a 1 in the comments if that sounds good to you. So you really want to be strategic and think about and prioritize audience building, because if you don't do that, like the audience that you have, they might lose interest. Sometimes people can relate to shiny object syndrome, like you're into something now and then next week you're into something else. So you definitely want to have an influx of potential clients, of community members that come into your email, onto your social media platforms regularly, because they're new, they're excited, and that also re-energizes whatever community you have, having new people in the mix. Another reason why you want to do that is it's just going to give you the opportunity to consistently grow your business, to generate more income, and work with more people that you enjoy doing the work that you're so passionate about. So I wanted to share how I actually started growing my community. Some of you may have heard this, I started in my living room, and my apartment at the time, I think, was probably like 1,200 square feet. A big thing that people have is like, if I host something, and I'll be talking about both online and offline today, like I have to find a space, and is my space good enough? And I went with a route that felt incredibly downhill. I see a lot of you tuning in. Feel free to say hello in the comments so I can say hello to you. But I started in my living room. It was a women's circle, and I felt like I led with what would light me up, right? So what is it that excites you? How do you like to be with people? And so for me, I've always participated in women's groups. And even as a participant, I always saw myself leading my own groups at some point. And so my very first entry into growing my business, I was in my second coaching program at the time. And that was like my first attempt at getting visible and putting myself out there. So I hosted a local meetup that was in my living room. And ironically, I saw another organizer, she would have a sign-in sheet where she'd have the person's name, their email address, I think it was their phone number, and maybe like a little check sign that was like, do you want to join my list? So I saw her do that. So I created a sign-in sheet for myself, and people would sign in, give me their email address, but I didn't know that I was supposed to stay in contact with them. So I just kind of put it in a manila folder, and it was in my file cabinet for a very long time. And so starting that first group was so incredible. And I made a commitment that I was going to show up once a week. I was like, I'm ready to get clients. And so, yes, I wanted people to attend the group, but it was also my way of like telling the universe or like saying, I'm serious about my business. I'm going to show up, whether one person comes, whether three people come, whether more people come. And of course, there's always that fear, like, is anyone going to show up to my event? So I hosted that first one, and I think maybe 8 people came to the first one. It was so much fun. And it really just the women that came were incredible. The bonding was beautiful. And I kept showing up every week. And what it did for me was it helped me get really comfortable facilitating a group. Oftentimes, people are afraid to host something, whether it's a webinar or a workshop or a retreat, anything that you want to do. Like, what if people ask you questions that you don't know the answer to? What if you have someone in the group whose energy is a little bit difficult, or they're being combative with you, or they have something against everything you say, right? So being in that energy once a week on a consistent basis helped me become really confident facilitating the energy in the room. And I got to practice making offers, even though it was incredibly uncomfortable for me. And sometimes I wouldn't do it. Other times I'd have to like muster up the courage to do it. But it was a great ground. And it also helped me find out from the people who were coming what was important to them, what challenges were they facing. And it was in those early groups that I was able to launch my first program, which was on teleconference. It was a teleconference call line. And so those first 2 programs, one was called Expanding Your Capacity to Receive as a Woman. That was 4 weeks. And the women that joined that program were in that local meetup. And then I did another one called Bloom into Your Abundance. I think that was 5 weeks, and women from that program enrolled in that. Thank you. It doesn't show me your name, but it says you were just doing some business posting and you saw that I was on. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm using StreamYard. So when you use StreamYard, unless you've given them permission to show your name, it just says Facebook user. So thank you for joining me. So type a 1 in the comments if you can relate to anything that I'm saying. So I filled my initial programs by hosting that regular meetup. You know, they were having a great time and they wanted more. And then I started offering my private coaching. So again, these groups were small. Sometimes 2 additional people came, and so it was just the 3 of us. Sometimes we were up to maybe 10 or 12. And so I was able to get my private coaching practice filled with just that group of people. And oftentimes when we think audience, thank you, Latricia. I hope I'm saying your name. And then Taya, nice to see you. Awesome. So sometimes when we think the word audience can feel like you think of auditorium, right? And like there's got to be hundreds of people. It can be 5 people. And yes, today I'm talking about audience growth. We're not just talking about the numbers. The numbers are important, but we're also going to be talking about the quality of numbers. And so I wanted to share that story because my audience started from those local meetup groups in my living room. And I think anytime you can be in physical contact with people, people aren't multitasking. You're not going to be on Facebook and sending emails when you're in an in-person event. People are at the event to engage with you. So for those of you that are into in-person events, I highly recommend it. Because they really get a visceral sense of who you are, and your ability to create community is very, very powerful. So type a 1 in the comments if you're someone that wants to be with people in person. Latricia says, good advice about in person. Yes, even though we're online, people still love to gather. And I appreciate being online. I'll be talking more about that today, but there's something that happens when you are together in person and you really get a sense of who people are. I do see it as a loop, right? So it's like I did stuff in person in my living room. I took pictures of the event. I shared those pictures on social media. And so it's like this big loop of like, oh wow, that's a great group. I want to meet those people. I want to participate next time. And so what that was doing was creating social proof. So here I was, I said that I'm hosting an event. The event happened. I captured the event. I shared the event and said, hey, come on to the next one. And so we can do this whether it's online or offline. So um, our tip number one here really is that we really want to focus on the quality of quality over quantity. Yes, it's both, but sometimes people can focus more on the quantity over quality. And so that what's important is to know like how many people do you actually need to reach your income goal? How much money do you actually want to make? And does it really require that you have a following of 10,000 people? Maybe your goal is, maybe 10 clients if you're doing private coaching is you being fully booked. So how many people do you need to have in your audience? Do you even need more than 100 people? Probably not to have a full roster if 10 is your number. But that way you can kind of reverse engineer it. So while we want to continue to add new people and meet, get outside of our circle and meet more people that are ideal clients, it's more important that people are really interested in your topic, in your niche, and they want to learn from you. Another thing I'll say about that is that sometimes people might think like, oh, that's just my family, that's just my friend. I wouldn't say that that's an empty audience member, right? Because different people in our audience serve different purposes. So even if someone in your audience is never going to purchase from you, but they like you, they're inspired by you, they want to see you win, they want to leave a comment, that serves your business in some way. And it serves the algorithm, meaning that it's going to show it to more people because of that comment. So we also want the love from people who just like us and want to see us win. That definitely adds. So type of one, if you're focusing on quality, and we'll say quality and quantity, right? But it's just not about empty quantity, because I literally have worked with people who have way bigger audiences than me, yet those people are not buying or choosing to hire them as a client. So it's like you could have a large audience of people who just want to follow. Yes, awesome. She says, I'm about quality. So I was doing that group and then I moved location. So I was living in Los Angeles in Southern California. I actually now live in Northern California. For some of you, because I know some of you are not from this area, driving, it's about 5 hours. And so I moved locations, but I really wanted to stay connected to that local meetup, which is when I started this very Facebook group, Women Coaches in Bloom. We're inside the Women Coaches in Bloom Facebook group right now. That began because I'm like, wow, we had such an amazing local community. I want to stay connected with you, even though I've moved areas. Now, something to think about, I was hosting these events in my small living room that maybe, if we sat on the floor, maybe 20 people could fit in there. It would be still pretty tight. So your living room has a capacity, a physical room has a capacity. What's the opportunity with social media is that your living room could be as big as you make it. So I started this group, and you can create different settings if you decide to host a group. You don't have to host a group. Not everyone's drawn to host a group. What I like about it is that it can be a private group, which means that no one knows who's inside of the group unless you're inside of the group. So even if someone saw Women Coaches in Bloom, they don't know what's happening inside the group. They can't see the comments. And sometimes people are more apt to share, like if you like what their biggest challenge is. Let's say you're a relationship coach and you want to ask people about their relationship. They might feel more open to share about it in a closed container like a group or on a Zoom call or in your living room than they would on social media where anyone can just see on your personal page or on Instagram, for example. So I just want you to be thinking about, where can I have kind of a private container where my people can gather, they can learn, and they're more apt to want to ask questions. So I'm curious, for those of you that are here, do you already have some type of container? That container could be a Facebook group, it could be a meetup. Maybe you host people on Zoom from time to time. And I will say, when I started this group, I added the people from the local community. It was like less than 100 people. And at that time, I remember I would see groups. This group is now maybe about 1,700 people. I remember I would see groups and they would have numbers like 1,000 or even 500, felt like so many to me. And I'm like, how are they doing that? And they are being deliberate. They were deliberate and intentional about starting their community. So my tip for you, my tip number 2, is to be intentional and deliberate about having a gathering place for your people. Your audience, I'm even reluctant, even though I use the word audience. Part of the reason why I'm using the word audience is because so many people say to me that they need to grow and build their audience. But I kind of think that your audience and your community are two different things. So like, I feel like your audience can just be a group of people who follow what you do, or maybe they're on your list. And there are things that you do that actually make it feel like a community. So that's like hosting events, circles where people can interact with one another, and that bond is built, and you're creating something that people want to be a part of. So Latricia says, I have a private group and meet up sometimes in person. Awesome. Keep that up. That is wonderful. Like, these groups, they're for you. They position you as a leader, as an expert in what you're doing. You get to share and teach, which is a lot of the people that come to me love to share, teach, facilitate. It's great for your community members, whether they become a client or not. They can come, they can get value and know that they're not alone, and that they're like-minded people on their health path. They're like-minded people on their relationship or business path. So you definitely want to have a container for bringing people together. There was another thought that I had, but it left me. I'm sure it'll come back. So, like I said earlier, I saw another organizer doing the sign-in sheet. And it's so funny how, like, we see people doing stuff, we just do it. We don't know why we're doing it, but I'm like, oh, she's doing that. So I had people fill out the sign-in sheet. It was later, when I started working with one of my first business coaches, that she was like, oh, Khadijah, you should grow your email list. And like showed me like the nurture sequence to do that. So what I did was, all those people on that sign-in sheet, so I had their name, their phone number, their email, and then I had like a little checkbox if I could add them to my list. So a little plug in here is like, we don't want to, just because we have someone's email address, just add them to our list. They haven't said, yes, I want to add you to my list. So I've had this happen, where you give someone your business card and then they add you to their list, or like maybe people find you on LinkedIn and then all of a sudden you're on their email list. So you want to make sure that you have permission to be on someone's, you have someone's permission for them to be on your list, and that they do in fact want to continue hearing from you. And of course, people can unsubscribe when they want. That's usually at the end of an email. So type a 1 in the comments if you're not just going to steal somebody's email and start marketing to them, even though they didn't ask you, right? We're not doing that. So anyway, I started my email list. For those of you who are wondering, I use GetResponse. And, I've just always used GetResponse. One of the things I like is that you can do chat with them in real time. And so I'm someone who technology was initially like, I was nervous about it. And so being able to communicate with someone if I needed help was important to me. And then I checked out some other things, and it seemed like you had to email them and it would take a little bit of time. So I'll just say that GetResponse is what I use. And I started building that relationship. So what that means is that I would share value with my email list. I still do. So like, we're here doing a live, I'm going to share this video with my email list, right? And so it's a way for you to stay top of mind with your audience. You're offering value. Sometimes I share events that I'm participating in, or I'll share things that other people are doing that I think could enhance them or their business in some way. And so the thing too about email is that it's your list. So even though I use a lot of platforms, like I have Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, um, Meetup, I don't have everyone's email address just because they're following me on social media. And you may have noticed, I mean, when I first had my Facebook business page, it seemed like the reach was so high. Like a lot of people would see my posts when I first started. That was like 10 years ago. And now, the algorithm has changed and you don't like the percentage of people that are seeing your posts are decreasing. So when you have your own email list, you know that that's your email list and that you can email the people in your world whenever you want. No one can say, no, you can't email them unless, of course, someone just unsubscribes. So it's to your advantage to not only, if you don't already have a list, to start an email list. And a good place to start, I know a lot of people like to use MailChimp, or you can use GetResponse. Like, it doesn't really matter, but you want to start an email list. And from time to time, saying hello, talking about your niche, talking about offering things that could be of value to them. And then, of course, you can also invite people to take the next step with you. So there's a lot of things that I do to grow my email list. You may have noticed, some of you, like with this Facebook group that I have, there's an option to get my lead magnet. And so people will often put their email list when they join the group. I do regular trainings that people can share, and you'll see that I'm going to offer something, a guide, and people can opt into my list that way. I do speaking engagements, and when I go someplace to speak, I offer my lead magnet, or if I do a podcast, I host my own summits. That's a huge list generating event. So, any event, challenges. So there's a lot of things that I do to grow my list. I talk more about them inside of my Business Queen Academy. But for you, I would just say, like, if any of the things that I just mentioned are attractive to you, then see about how you can start doing them more consistently, because then it's just like you have new people entering your world that could be a good match for you, and you a good match for them, to help them have a breakthrough in some area of their life. So I'd love to hear what stands out for you in terms of how you'd like to grow your audience. And as I'm waiting for people to post a few things in the comments, I'm going to talk about the 3 things that we talked about. So the first one we talked about is that you want to focus on quality, not quantity. And so I should actually say, because oftentimes people lead with quality, right? So we want both, but we want quality quantity, right? So it's like the more people that you have to email, share what you're doing, it's just you spreading your message. And even if they are not ready at this time, like I have clients right now, some of them said they've been following me for a few years before they decided to take the step and actually work with me. And so by staying present, offering value, being consistent, people remember you. And when they're ready, it's like, oh yeah, I think I'm finally ready to work on my fitness goals. I've been following this person. Let me see what it is that they have to offer. So number one is that we're going to focus on the quality of the people that we're wanting to invite into our world. And the way that we do that is by really honing in on your niche. Who do you serve? How do you serve them? And that's going to be refined by you learning how to dial in your messaging and communicate what you do, which is another thing that we do inside of the Business Queen Academy. So that was, so the first one was to focus on the quality. The second one is to be deliberate about inviting people to your community. And so that's just something, some of you may already have a community and maybe you just stopped inviting people. Like I worked with a client, she was just like, oh yeah, like she was able to grow her Facebook group by like just a few hundred just by inviting people. Like it's something that we want to do consistently. And if you think about, I mean, you guys, many of you are watching me on Facebook, Facebook is always recommending people to you. So, they've done some work for you in terms of seeing who are people that you might be aligned with. Maybe you share some similar friends or some similar interests. Those are people that you can begin to invite to join you. But what we don't want to do, right, is you friend someone and then you say, hey, join my group. Nobody likes that because then they feel like, oh, okay, you just friended me to join my group. So I recommend that you show genuine interest in people and that you like and comment on other people's stuff, be engaged, sincerely interested in others, and make an open invitation. So whether that's individual invitations or you share it regularly on your personal page. So every now and again, Latricia says exactly. I'm guessing you're saying exactly to the let me friend you and invite you right away to my group. So we're not doing that, right? Nobody, I want you to really pay attention to how does it feel on your end when people do certain things and then you say, okay, that didn't feel so good, then I'm not gonna do that. What would feel good? Yes, Latricia, what would feel good? Like, how would you like to be invited into something? It's actually even better when you're not just making an empty invitation, but an invitation to something, right? You can do both, but let me show you the little distinction here. So it's one thing if I tell you just to join my newsletter versus um, sign up to hear my top saving tips on how to buy your first house, right? So do you see how specific that is? It's like you're giving me a concrete reason to join. And I also see in that I'm going to learn something that I want. So anytime when you're thinking about inviting people to something, whether it's your intentional community that we're talking about today, like you want to give them a solid reason to join. So, and then the third one was to build and nurture your email list. So some of you may not have a list. Some of you may have a list. And sometimes, we're human. We have ebbs and flows. Sometimes you have a lot of energy for something and then you fall off and then you just come back. So if you're the person that has a list and it's been a while, all you have to do is just say, hey, it's been a while. Let me tell you what I've been up to and what I'm excited to share with you in the upcoming months. And so, what that does too is it makes it easier to share and sell when it's time because you feel like you've been nurturing the relationship. When you feel like you have an offer and you're going to promote it, then it's easier to feel self conscious because you haven't been building that relationship over time. So I hope that that helps. If there are any questions, you're welcome to post them in the comments or what you're walking away with. Um, if you'd like more tips on getting paying clients, whether it's your first one or your next one, I'd love to invite you to download my free ultimate guide to client creation. And in it, I share what I call the 4 pillars of the Client Creation Queen framework. And so we'll put that in the comments. It's the same process that I use all the time to grow my audience, to attract new clients into my programs. I've had a client, she made like $20,000 in 6 weeks. I've had a client who got her first $1,800 in like a month. Another client who got 7 clients within 45 days. And so this is the same thing that I do over and over and over again. So you're welcome to download that guide. We put it in the chat. It's manifestclientsnow.com/guide. So happy growing your audience. I just also want to say I want you to remember like what a privilege it is to be able to connect with people that you would not know otherwise if you didn't put yourself out there, put your business out there, create a space for people to gather. That alone is so powerful, whether they become a client or not. One of the things about having a Facebook group is that you can see insights, and it's like there are people in this group from all around the world. Like, oh my God, where did these people come from? And then I'm asking that question, but of course they came because I created this space and I wanted to meet them. And I wanted a place where women coaches and service-based entrepreneurs could gather and learn. And it's the same thing as you grow your audience. I know some of the people that are on here, like I know Gail's a burnout coach. And so imagine like people gathering together and healing from burnout. And that's a unique experience to be having and to be around other people that can relate that, where they can share their tips, what's working for them, and be supported and guided with your insight is so powerful. So continue to build your audience, and that is going to help you continue to grow your business. So I'm happy to hear any takeaways in the comments or questions. So until next time, thanks for joining me.